and welcome back to A Dungeon of Bad Decisions. This is the 47th installment of Anna Attempts to Explain Things. I'm your host, Anna, and this week's topic is world-building tips for DMs. Good world-building as a DM is 1 part improv to 2 parts obscure details. Or seemingly obscure details. Improv part is basically expect to come up with names on the fly. You're not required to name every single NPC that your players could possibly interact with. Nobody expects you to do that. However, whether you like it or not, at some point, your players are going to fixate on an NPC that was supposed to be a throwaway. You may even have just come up with them on the spot because you didn't think of, because your PCs are assholes. And then they're like, well, what's his name? And you're like, oh, well, shit, he doesn't have a name. I gotta come up with a name. Franklin! His name is Franklin. Improv. Much like, actually playing the NPCs. The obscure details part is just shit like the local economy. I had a DM once who was very new to it and didn't realize that a village that is not self-sustaining needs more shipments of supplies than, sporadically every couple weeks, If you don't have proper world building, if there are loopholes or whatever, then it's going to ruin the immersion. The storytelling is going to suffer, and some of your more asshole-ish players are going to exploit dumb loopholes for stupid shit. If you don't make sure that you have the little things worked out, or at least the ability to work them out on the fly. Another thing is, know the background details, not just like the big current events like wars and coups and whatever, but the little things like how the common people are affected by these things, how it affects their sense of patriotism, their sense of racism, their sense of nationalism, whatever. Because this can influence how they interact with your PCs. If your country is if your PCs are in a country that is at war with another country that consists of a non-human race, and they're in a human country, and one of your PCs is of that non-human race or related to it, then they're going to be racist against your PC. Basically, treat NPCs, not individually, but as a whole, as real people. These are real people with real problems and real, you don't have to know their names. You don't have to know how many people are in a town. You can know, the rough size of a town, because that's kind of important for, what your players are going to be able to find in it. But they're people. And especially give the important NPCs the proper backstory. At least figure out, something beyond their name and their profession. Figure out, if you've got some important person that your NPCs are going to be interacting with on a regular basis, figure out their backstory. Figure out where they were born, how old they are, what their parents did for a living, what their motivations are, shit like that. Basic character development. Because otherwise, you're going to have to improvise everything on the fly. And frequently that winds up with a lot of NPCs winding up being very similar to each other. So after a while, your players are going to be like, this is just, aren't going to be able to tell your key NPCs apart. Which is just obnoxious for everybody. It ruins the immersion, and everybody likes immersion, These are real people. Whoops. If you enjoyed this video, check out more content in the links in the description below for the Dungeon Bad Decisions Discord server, and my blog where I post quotes, anecdotes, and photos from the tabletop games I play in at thedungeonofbaddecisions.tumblr.com, and to support my Patreon. Special thanks again to Crunchy Chompy for being a game master's nightmare, and to Polygon and Tark for being average adventurers. Click here to check out the rest of the series, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Roll 20s, y'all!